Yeah, what can you
All
do?
right, your sound is good. I'm going to put you up so I can hear you on my
What
end.
kind of mic have you got?
A Yeti?
Yeah, I've heard of that. A Yeti, what? 360 or something?
I don't know. This one?
I think I have a cheap one I bought like 10 years ago. I bought it because I like the look of it.
Yeah, that one's cool.
I don't
You
know if
want
it
the
works though.
I was listening to some of your stuff. You want something like this little whatever mesh thingy. You want that because it protects, it doesn't have like it doesn't have like
Mm.
all of those sound. It'll help your sound quality too.
Hmm.
Another thing, when you record, have somebody do the quick player if they have it. Then they'll be able to send, oh, I don't know if you know how to do that though. They'll like send their audio and your audio and you can mesh it together. Because Zoom is not the best quality.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
if you have a good podcast though, which you do, I've been listening to it,
Thanks.
then nobody gives a shit about it. They just want to know that what you're giving them is good. So you're good to go.
Yeah, thanks. I do find though sometimes when I'm listening to other people's stuff, I do find that sort of thing distracting. Like
Yeah.
that, like
Yeah.
noises and I don't like it. And yeah. Anyways. Anyways,
All
moving on.
right. So we are good to go. Okay. So any questions at all? So I want to definitely promote your book. I
Thank you.
want to I want to make sure after and I'll have my assistant send you scheduling so that we can schedule after 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 I interview, I like to have my guests on my private Facebook group. Just so like,
Hmm.
the women that I'm like serving can ask you questions and
Isn't that cool?
yeah, so we'll do that. I'll send you information about that. That way we can promote your book even more.
Sounds great.
Um so yeah, I've done research on you. I'm really much like, all right, let's just see where this goes.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Okay, dope. Anything that you're like, Veronica, I'm not cool with talking about, or like, I don't know.
Let's
No?
shoot. Let's just go for it.
All right, let's do it.
I'll know it if I hear it.
All right, cool.
I'll be like, I
Cool,
don't
cool,
know if I
cool.
want to answer that. But I honestly, I don't, like, honestly, there's nothing anymore. There's nothing.
Okay, cool.
Pretty out
All right,
there.
so we're recording on both ends. Awesome. Here we go. All right. Welcome to Empowered and Unapologetic. I'm your host, Veronica Cisneros. Today's guest is a relationship mentor with over 25 years of nursing experience in both public and private healthcare across Canada. After experiencing mental illness and addiction with her own children, she founded Maureen Towns Consulting to help families struggling to care for their own loved ones. Her work with parents inspires them to rediscover themselves within chaotic and challenging situations. She is the host of the Broken Open podcast and the author of Broken Open, A Mother's Journey to Survive Her Children's Addiction and Mental Illness. So please help me by welcoming Maureen Towns. Hey, Maureen.
Hey, thanks so much for the intro and having me on.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to have you on. So, a couple things that when I was doing my research, like doing all of the the back end stuff, a couple things that came up is holy moly, has this woman gone through so much and her family. And what I loved about your story was you weren't holding anything back. Like it, a lot of times when I work, I don't know if you know, I'm a therapist. A
Yes.
lot of times when I'm working with families, they tend to go to this place of, well, this is just a problem. We just got to get rid of it and be done with it. It's causing a great amount of shame in our family. Like, I don't know what the hell's wrong with my daughter, but like, fix her.
Mhm.
And I'll be here in the waiting room or I'm going to go get my Starbucks. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
hell no. Hell no. Nope. That's not the way this is going to go down. Come into the office, bring your ass in here because we're all going to be best friends at the end of this.
Yeah.
You're going to love me and hate me at the same time. Maybe not
Yes.
best friends, but we're definitely going to be at a whole another level.
Yes.
What I loved about you was I watched your interview with your daughter Ali, and I also listened to your podcast episode with her, and it's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, if parents, I actually shared it on my Facebook group.
Thank
If
you.
Yeah, of course. If parents could listen to this and take a step back from how they want to be perceived as a mom,
Yeah.
just really get into it and listen and connect, the value they would get from it, because it's not only, our daughter struggling, it's not only, our son struggling, family is struggling. We
Mhm.
got to be open and honest about it. And I I'm like going on, like, because I think you're
No, no, it's good. It's
badass.
good.
But
Yeah,
I'm just
thanks.
I do. I'm telling you, I'm like a big fan. You don't even know me. But like it's just like holy crap. So can you, before I get into all of it, can you share with us your story? And I want to highlight, you imagined the perfect life for your child, but mental illness had other plans.
Yes.
So can you start by telling us what all that means and what your background is?
Yeah. So thank you for the compliments about my discussion with Ali. I have to be honest with you about that, though. I certainly didn't start out that way. If you'd had an interview with us, 7 years ago, let's
Yeah.
say, it would have been a different story. I spent a lot of time and energy presenting to professionals just like you and trying to appear very, very sane
Hmm. Yeah.
and almost justifying and rationalizing where I was. Um, because I was terrified, honestly. I mean, the book's called Broken Open for a reason. I broke open to this way of being. I mean, I had to learn the hard way that the the facade of having it all together and um, the effort that I was putting into trying to manage not only what was going on, but others' perceptions of what was going on in my home was just, it wasn't working. I had to let it go. I had to try something different. And that's the story of Broken Open. It's the story of me breaking open on the backdrop of my kids' mental health and addictions issues. So going into, I would say the issues with my kids, I mean, I was a doer, like I'm a doer.
Hmm.
I like to stay busy. I like to manage things. I identified strongly as a strong problem solving, you know, um, fun,
Yeah. Yeah. All around.
I get stuff done. I get stuff
Hmm.
done,
Yep.
and that's what I'm about. And I um, always managed, like I managed the family. And so that worked really well until it didn't work. And so when it started not working and signs that it wasn't working was when my second son, I have 4 kids, all in about a 6-year period. So they're all pretty close together.
Hmm.
And my second son, when he was 18, it was becoming undeniable that this kid was changing and that he was not thriving. He was going downhill quite quickly in his last year of high school. And it became apparent the year after he finished high school. So he finished high school in June, and by September, October, it was pretty apparent that he wasn't doing okay. Um, I probably wouldn't have said it that way. I would have said he was a pain. I would have said he was disruptive. I would have said he was unmotivated, lazy, and that's not the way he used to be. And
Yeah.
so we needed to do something. And so we ended up booting him out of the house, actually, like, he just needs some experience in the real world and how
Yeah.
hard it
Why
is. And
not?
then he'll come back and straighten up.
Hmm.
Because we thought we tried everything. And then became a parent that he had a substance use issue. I couldn't say addiction, substance use problem. Maybe he's addicted to lying. Maybe that's what it is. I couldn't
Yeah.
say drug addict. And anyway, we did an intervention. We sent him off to drug treatment, which was a gong show. We didn't do any work on ourselves, really.
Hmm.
Then he came home from drug treatment, relapsed, and then we started the cycle of him in and out of our home and us feeling defeated, hopeless, kind of crazy,
Yeah.
uh, devastated, fearful, and then my oldest son had a psychotic break, and my youngest child started self-harming. And we were it was all kind of happening at once. We would I was describing it the other day to someone. I used to be an emergency room nurse, and there were times when I'd be getting ready for bed at 11 p.m. and I'd feel like I'm being pulled back into the emergency department dealing with a crisis in our home. My son's back on the porch crying, saying, I can't do this anymore. I need your help. My daughter's cutting herself in her room. And, it's serious. My other son's having a suicide attempt or using again, even though he has a risk of psychosis and never returning to a normal baseline. Like it was just,
Nonstop.
it was nonstop. And um, so I just got more and more frantic and fatigued and scared, and would lay awake at night trying to go over, like, okay, so this is what's going on. And there, my head would go to, why is this happening? What did I do? Like, how did we screw this up so badly? Like, this, what happened here? And then it
This
would go
can't be
to,
us.
is this can't be happening. And what are we going to do about it? Maybe if I just come at it from this angle or try it from this way, then then this would happen, knowing him. And then I'll go and then we'll do that. And then this will happen. And like, it was just a hamster wheel. And, of stress, I would say. And so this went on for quite a while. And we'd take one step forward, three steps back, two steps forward, three steps back, a couple steps forward, we'd have a reprieve. And then bang, something else would happen. So it was chaotic for years. And so the story is the story of recovery,
Yeah.
for me, right, in the way that I parented,
Yeah. Yes.
and learning how to look after myself,
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to separate, like to make the distinction between what's me and what's them. What can I manage? What can't I manage? How do I rebuild a broken relationship with my kids after so many years of chaos? How do I what does mothering even look like in the context of this kind of mental health and addictions? How do I regain my sense of freedom that I'm so angry that I feel like I've lost? How do I regain my sense of self when I feel like I've become someone I don't even recognize anymore? I've become someone that's behaving in ways that aren't really in line with my values. I'm getting angry and sarcastic, and well, yeah, I just felt like I was losing myself ultimately, because I was, and
Yeah.
so learning how to be different is what the book's about. And yeah, I've pulled together bits of my own experience, bits of leadership development training that I've done. And then and some work on in the recovery world and 12 step,
Yeah.
and I've pulled it all together into, this is what I've learned. This is what I wish I'd known. um, Hopefully you can prevent some of the missteps that I took,
Yeah.
if this is your story, if you identify with it. And yeah, that's what the book is. So there you go. That's my
This
story.
book, this book, excuse me, this book came at a really good time.
Yeah.
Right now, our office is getting so many calls
Yeah.
on self-harm,
Yeah.
addiction, and it's attempted suicides,
Yes.
suicidal kids, 13, 14 years old.
Hmm.
My daughter attempted suicide yesterday,
Hmm.
or my daughter, I found all these marks on her, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Um, Nobody prepares us for that.
No.
Nobody prepares us for this. And I think with motherhood already, there's already this level of expectation,
Hmm.
to be this PTA status mom, and you have to look this way and you have to be this way. And if your kids, if there's something wrong, if they're jumping on the couches, that's obviously your parenting. And you know right, it's
Yeah.
totally suck as a mom.
Not enough sports.
Right? Not enough sports. Like, I mean, we
Should have
could
done
go
something
on and
different.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally your fault. You suck as a mom. If your kids,
Yeah.
are eating unhealthy, like same
Yeah.
thing. Like, oh, it's your fault your kids gained weight, or it's your fault your kid, isn't performing at their best. And
Yeah.
so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as
Yes.
parents to do everything, which means, going back to what you were saying, having the answers for everything,
Yep.
having the answers for things that we've never experienced,
Hmm.
never prepared for. And one thing I find when parents come in, with their kids who are suffering from addiction, who are suffering from self-harm behavior, it's like, fix this problem.
Yep.
Fix this problem. Nobody in the family can know about it.
Yeah. A lot of secrecy. Yeah.
A whole hell of a lot of secrecy. Nobody can know
Mhm.
about it. We don't know what to do. Fix her. Fix
Yeah.
her.
Mhm.
And that's that's where I believe we get it all wrong. And the only reason I know this is because of the training that I've had.
Mhm.
Had I not had the training, I would be in line with them. Fix the
Yeah.
problem. Make this stop. You
Yeah.
know, and I sit with my clients and I'll tell them, you know, I can understand. I can understand right now. It's like, what the hell is happening? This can't be us. This
Yes.
can't be us.
Yeah.
You know, how did I miss it? How did I not catch it? Why?
I did all the things.
Did
Like
all
what
the I
how
checked
did we
all
end
of the
up here?
box.
Yeah.
Bingo. I've
Yeah.
checked all the boxes. How is it that my daughter's cutting in the other room and now I I lie awake at 2 o'clock in the morning wondering if I should check on her again to see if
Yeah.
she's breathing or if she's hung herself in the room.
Yeah. Is she gonna hit an artery and bleed out? Like, I'm gonna find a bloodbath in there in the morning. Like, I was so scared. She was every time she'd cut, she'd get deeper and deeper, and I was really terrified that she was gonna inadvertently, like, I even when I finally got to the point where I knew that she didn't wanna die, this was a coping mechanism for her. And, oh my god, she's gonna hit an artery and die. This is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did all the things. Like, there was no abuse in our home. There was nobody got raped. There was no, molestation from the neighbor. There was no, like, why is this happening? Where's the trauma? And so every time I saw something that linked addictions and mental health to trauma, I got quite defensive and quite upset about it, because I mean, we'd really worked hard to create a home that was loving and accepting, and we were
Everything.
intelligent people, and there was opportunities, and there was money, and we did all the things. And so what was, I was home with kids most of the time when they were younger. One of us was there. And how did we end up here? I mean, I remember jokingly saying to my ex-husband, stupid people raise good kids. What's our deal? Like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
isn't this working?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Totally get it.
I agree with you. Like, if they're the problem. So when we first sent Ben off to drug treatment, which I said was a gong show, which is a
I
disaster.
believe you.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but I'm going to tell you right now, I believe it. And we're
it was a gong show. We chose a bad treatment center. But anyways, that aside, it's worth reading about. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny now, but um, I thought, if he comes home, just fix him. Just send my kid back.
yeah.
And what I wanted was somebody who could function. Like, send my kid back functional. Send my kid back so that um, he'll get an education and or a job, but don't even care which, and learn how to support himself and launch
Yeah.
effectively. Like, I don't care. I don't have dreams of him being a lawyer. That's, I'm not fixated on anything like that. I just need a kid who can look after himself
Yeah.
someday. you know
Pretty please. Pretty please.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's not where we're heading. and
No.
and that's what was terrifying me. I'm going to have this kid on my sofa, draining my bank account, exhausting me, wreaking havoc in my home until he's 60.
Yeah. So how do you get out of that? How does a parent get out of that? Because you're spot on with coming to the therapist and saying, presenting as well as you can so you look sane, because there is that component where you're like, I need you to know that I'm not the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know where the hell this came from. And I'm on board with whatever you're going to tell me to do, and I'm going to be active in this therapeutic process, right? And then you have therapists. I'm gonna call them out. You have a therapist that can't get their stick out of their ass, that
Yeah.
goes straight to the book versus, wait a minute, mom, dad, how are you guys doing?
Oh my God, I would have loved that question. I ached for that question. Like,
How are you? This isn't your
oh
fault,
no,
right?
my God,
This
thank
isn't
you
your
for that.
fault.
I'm so grateful to hear that you say those kinds of things to parents. I wanted that so badly, because really what I was defending against had nothing to do with the therapist. It had to do with me, my own
Yes.
fear that maybe it really was me.
Yes.
Maybe I really had screwed this up, and that maybe there really was something that I should have and could have done differently. And so I was worried about someone else confirming my worst fears, which is that it's me.
Yep.
Um, and so I wanted so badly some validation that I was a good mom and that I was
Yep.
working really hard and that I had an atypical kid and that, normal parenting techniques like just being consistent and having consequences, um, of course, didn't work with these kids. These
Yeah.
aren't kids who respond to that. And
No.
I want, the crazier I felt, the more I worked at trying to appear sane. And every time I was called into the office,
Yeah.
uh, I felt a little traumatized, I have to say, because I had to give
Yes.
the history, the insane history of what was going on in our, have there been any stresses or changes in your home? Are you kidding me? Which day do you want to
Yeah.
talk about?
I mean,
Like, so every time I had to recount that stuff, I was embarrassed. I was
mm,
ashamed.
mm-hmm.
I was watching the therapist acutely for
Any signs like
the
the judgment.
confusion, the look of
Mm-hmm.
overwhelm, like all of it, I was
Mm-hmm.
dialed right into. And so it took something out of me, emotionally every time I did it. And
Mm-hmm.
I dreaded it. Like I dreaded it. I dreaded a trip to the emergency department for going over it one more time. I dreaded every intern that we had to face because
Oh
I had to
God.
tell the story
Mm.
again. And
Mm-hmm.
the lack of consistency. I mean, we have a great healthcare system in Canada, but it's got some problems. And one of the problems is consistency, because it's a lot of patchwork stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
every time we went in, we'd have someone new, and away we go again. And oh my gosh, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
And so, how did I get out of that? I think that it was going to a program. Well, first of all, ultimately, we took our kids to a recovery program in which family participation was mandatory. So if you weren't
Yes.
willing, that was,
That's a good one.
so
That's
I'll do
important.
anything. I'll do anything at this point. You want me to cook a turkey? I'll cook a turkey. You
I
want me to
got you.
clean the toilets? I got it. You want me to show up twice a week for meetings? You got it.
Here.
And and um having to do that, go to family treatment, and then having to meet and to spend time with other parents, uh, who'd been through the same thing and come out the other side, you're like, oh, you start to develop like, okay, 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 okay. I know, okay, I get it. This isn't working. And you've got someone calling you on your crap,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Because I had a great victim story. Like I
Yeah.
was
All
quite
day.
good at, oh, let me list my list of hardships for you. Because what I want you to do is say, holy shit, Maureen, you've been through a lot. Wow, anyone, you're doing a remarkable,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I wanted. So I would list my
Everything.
hardships,
Yeah.
and I would get called on that perspective a little bit. And I'd think, oh, it would be pointed out to me that there was options in my thinking. There was another way of being, that perhaps living with me wasn't very easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't. And that was hard to look at. It was hard to look at how, I'd worked so hard to be strong. Um, and it was being perceived as not feeling and terrifying. I worked so hard at problem solving, and it was perceived as controlling.
Yeah.
And intrusive. I worked so hard at holding it all together, and people just, and I was somewhat unpredictable. I was erratic because I would try things from this angle and this angle. And some days I'd have the energy for it, and some days I'd be exhausted. And it got to the point where, man, I must have been weird to live with, because you never knew what you were going to get. Like, you might get me on my game, you might get me really centered and grounded that day, and stuff rolls off my back like a duck, like, or you might get me sighing and
Yeah.
did it,
Yeah.
angry, like, you just never knew, and so, look, I had to look at that, I had to look at, okay, so what am I like to live with, and what does freedom look like? And the
Beautiful.
message that your kids might not be okay,
Yeah.
and if you're willing to do the work that we're putting in front of you, you're gonna be okay, no
Yeah.
matter what happens to them. I was like, "Okay, I don't really believe you, and
Mhm.
that's not o and I don't want to accept the idea that my kids might not be okay, and but I really do want freedom."
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a long, it didn't happen overnight. It was a long, chiseling away at the hard shell to get in there and convince me, um, that it was okay to try something different despite my fear. It was hard to let go. Even when I recognized that my behaviors weren't effective, it was still hard to let them go.
Well,
You know,
because
I
it's something that you knew, it was something you were familiar with,
Yeah.
and it was something that you it was trusting the dysfunction
Yeah.
because it showed up.
Yeah.
It showed up on time every day. So you're
Yeah.
like, "All right."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like, at one point, there was a story you talk about self-harm, I so understand, that this is a crisis,
Yes.
for people. They're forced to sit in discomfort, and
Yeah.
we don't know how to do it,
No.
and, we're forced to sit in unpleasant emotion, and so we're frantically trying to find a soothing.
100%.
So we're using
This part.
substances,
Mhm.
behaviors, cutting, mental health issues are exacerbated, dysfunctional relationships are blown up, like, you can't hide from this stuff anymore, and we
No.
don't know how to handle it. And so I remember with my daughter at one point, my boys were doing well in recovery at this center, and my daughter was not addicted to anything, but she was self-harming, and she had, borderline. And, I wanted the treatment center I thought they should start a program for self-harm.
Yeah.
She's
It
not the
falls
only
under
sibling
addictions.
she's not the only sibling self-harming, so let's go. So I went in there to talk to one of the clinical directors one day about, you know, they need to start a program for her.
Mhm.
Solve
Yeah.
my problem. You need to solve my problem. And, I had looked at, we were running a recovery home. So what the part of the program was that it wasn't inpatient. So the kids would go into treatment during the day and then they would be sent home with parents at night. And so
Yeah.
there was a whole criteria around running a safe recovery home. And it included, an alarm on their door, mattresses on the floor, no blind cords that they can choke themselves on, alarms on the
Yeah.
windows. Like, and so I thought, well, that's what I'll do for my daughter. I'll set up a recovery room for her. I'll put a mattress on the floor and alarm her door. And that way, then I'll know that when she goes into her room at night, she's not going to accidentally hit an artery and kill herself. And I went
Mhm.
in and talked to one of the directors there. And I remember saying to her, this is what you need to do. And this is what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to set up a recovery room for her and then you should run a day program. And she said, yeah, we're not going to do that. And what you're describing is not normal and it's no way to live. And you need
Yeah.
to accept that she may die. And I was like, uh, no, I don't,
Mhm.
because it's unacceptable. But it sunk in over the next few days. It started to sink in. I thought, she's right. I do need to accept that I can't control the outcome here because um, if she wants to chew through her arm, she'll chew through her arm. Like I
Thank
can
you.
take razors out of her room and paper clips and
Yeah.
all the things.
Yep.
But if she's needing to do this, she's going to do it. So it really is out of my control. And I've proven it to myself time and again that I can't manage this. So I really do need to accept that. And so, okay, doesn't mean I resign myself. It doesn't mean I don't try. It just means you do all the things. You do all the things, Maureen. You look at what does, like, what are you willing to do what's reasonable, and then you let go.
So Maureen, with that, our listeners right now who have kids who are cutting or struggling with addiction, at no time is Maureen giving up on her daughter or her sons. At no
No.
time. It might sound like that because this is something completely foreign to you.
Mhm.
However, this is also part of the process. It has to be part of the process because if not, then the problem stays there.
Mhm.
The cutting continues. You know why? Because now your daughter's going to look at you thinking, I did this to my mom.
Yeah,
I need
exactly.
to fix my mom.
Mhm.
I'm the problem. I need to be fixed. So I need to change, which only feeds into their distorted thinking and
Right,
it builds up even more.
that's right, and the problem isn't the cutting.
No, not at all.
The
Not at
problem,
all.
but that's what I'm fixated on, and the problem is not the using of the drugs and the alcohol, but
Not
that's
at
what I'm
all.
fixated on, right? That's what
Yes.
I'm trying to control and what I'm trying to manage. And so to dig a little deeper, the problem is my daughter's got a lot of feelings that she doesn't
Yes.
know how to handle, and
Bingo.
and so do I. And so I
Yes.
need to start to notice that. I need to start to label those feelings. I need to
Yeah.
be honest about them. I need to own them. They're not anybody else's fault. Nobody else needs to fix them. There's nothing wrong with them. I can have them, and I need to learn how to validate her feelings. And so
Beautiful.
so
Yes.
when I learned how to, and this is a skill,
Yep.
because
Absolutely.
I'm a problem solver, so I never want to do this, right? I always want to fix the facts of the story, fix the problem, rather than connect to the feeling behind the story. So, but when I learned to, I'd go into her room, and this happens in the book. I opened her door one night, and for some reason, I was in a different. I would think I was looking after myself, so I could show up as
Yeah.
a whole
Yeah.
person and not just be reactive. And so I opened the door, and there she was cutting, and I just had such empathy and compassion for her struggle rather than frustration and at the behavior. And so I said to her, "My God, Allie, you look like you're hurting.
Beautiful.
Like this must be so hard for you, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry to see you hurting, and I love you. And I know you're going to get this figured out. And you're having a hard time tonight. Let's have a cuddle." And so I just crawled into bed with her and gave her a cuddle, and my God, it changed everything. It changed everything. She felt seen, she felt heard, she felt held, she felt um,
Accepted.
accepted,
Accepted.
right? And no shame, like the shame
Mm-mm.
associated with it all. Like it just, oh, the poor little thing. And so, yeah, so that was a turning point for us. It was like, man, when I learned how to say, man, it must be really tough to be experiencing what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Um, and you're the only one that can
And get
change
yourself.
it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I'm your mom, and I'm here to cheer you on and support you. And absolutely, I see you, and I hurt when you hurt, but don't worry about that. It's my feelings. You don't have to fix it. Like I'll
This is
handle
mine.
that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
mine. And I'm here to support you when you're ready
Yep.
for something different.
Yep. That ladies, what Maureen just did, golden. 100% golden. Um, it is. It's golden. It's so hard for us to do. I'm a mom. I'm a mother of three.
Mhm.
And my kids, I have an 18-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And, they all drive me crazy in different ways.
Yes.
And they're so different.
Yeah.
My Aubrey's internalizes everything, doesn't know
Mm,
how to deal with her emotions.
mm.
So although I think I'm doing an amazing job, I'm going to get it wrong. I don't care how many parenting classes I can teach. I don't care how many books, how many degrees I have. I'm going to get it wrong. And I'm okay with saying that.
Well, you can't get it right all the time. And I think
No.
so. This is what I concluded as well, is that so the trauma, back to the trauma, right? I was always
Yeah.
looking for this trauma. Where's the trauma? And when I learned that trauma isn't what happened, it's the ineffective processing of the feelings around what happened.
Yes.
I was like, oh, and my son came home from, he was in drug treatment again at one point, and he came home, he was doing some therapy, and he came home and said, Mom, I had this revelation today. I was remembering this time in grade 2 where I was, playing baseball at recess, and I slid into home base, and Jimmy, banged my head off home plate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that happened.
Yeah.
At least I don't remember that story. And if I did know the story, I probably would have been a little bit dismissive and played it down a little bit, like, because I know Jimmy. Jimmy's a nice kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure Jimmy didn't mean anything by it. Like, I would have
Invalidated. Not
invalidated it.
purposely. Not
Yeah.
purposely.
No, no, very much here's another perspective, a little bit of suck it up, a little bit of, chin up, big guy. Tomorrow's another day, but it's all very invalidating.
Yeah.
And but the message for me, and there was a whole bunch of little things like that happened, that was like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know everything that goes on in my kid's day, and I don't know how it's landing for them, and some of it can be very traumatizing, and I can't know all of it.
No.
So there's, and it's so complex, like how all of this stuff plays out, right? Like there's the genetics, there's the, how attuned was I to them as an infant, how stressed was I when they were in utero,
Yeah. We can go
what
all
else
kinds of
happened
places.
in the home, how distracted was I? Of course we were busy, we had 4 little kids in 6 years, we both worked, like it was crazy making. But and so how can I, you can get it right, and you still can't prevent slash solve all of that.
No. And if you stay there, if you are to stay there, if you are to live by that lie, I'm going to call it a lie because it's a lie.
Mhm.
If you are to live by that lie, your kids, your kids will not know how to process this. They will not give themselves permission to
Mhm.
process, which
Right.
turns into anxiety, which
Yeah.
turns into depression later on in adulthood. This is why we
Shame.
have this, right?
Yeah.
All across the board. It is crucial. It is so crucial that we're able to acknowledge that, okay, yeah, as a mom, we're taught, we're conditioned to believe we have to have all the answers, and it's okay if we don't.
Hmm. And society really endorses that. I mean, we have a society, mummies should be able to kiss it and make it all better.
Yeah.
We do have, and I'm guilty of this too. We see something going on with a family, and I think, oh, something's going on behind
Yeah.
closed doors. Well, you don't know.
No.
And the idea that good mothers and good parenting equals well-adjusted kids. And
Yeah.
that's not always true either.
No.
And so, there's a whole lot of shame that goes with, and fear of being judged, and it's legit, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
it's changing. I do. I think people are getting more vocal, and shining a light on what's going on behind closed doors, to understand, like, this stuff doesn't discriminate. This stuff happens
No.
everywhere, and it is really complex. And man, we have such a mother blaming culture. We just really do. And if a good mother is selfless and puts her own needs last, that was another thing that
Mm-mm.
was hard to get my head around, that I needed to learn how to look after myself so that I could show up grounded, responsive, able to validate,
Yeah.
cheer my kids on.
Yeah.
You know, Motherhood is a limited role. I thought it was an everything role. It's a limited role, and we try and do everything.
Yeah.
You can't. You're sinking ship if you're trying.
Yes. Yes. And not only that, but you'll lose yourself in that process,
Yeah,
right? You'll
yeah,
lose that yourself in that process.
yeah.
Um, I have like 50,000 questions to ask you. Um, so, and I want to make sure I respect your time. What do you, above everything, right? Everything that we've just discussed, what do you wish you would have known? Like, what do you wish, like, if you can go back, right? Let's say if you can go back to, when it was, trauma in the ER in your house, right? When everything, your son's suicidal, your other son's contemplating, relapse or in his addiction, and your daughter's cutting, like when it's just nonstop. What do you wish you would have told yourself? What advice would you have given yourself in that moment if you could go back in time to that day that it was like shit hit the wall?
Overall, I wish I had known that I wasn't alone and that I shouldn't try and do it alone.
Yeah.
I need to find my people.
Yes.
I need
Yes.
to find my people who understand this and find what's possible
Yeah.
and let them walk with me through the process.
Yeah.
That's because I felt pretty alone,
Yeah.
overwhelmed and alone. And I wish I'd figured it out earlier. That being a mom and being a case manager are two different things. And I have no business trying to be my kid's therapist or a
No.
case manager.
No.
I'm just the mom. And so, what is that? And where do I stop and they start? Like, how do I separate that? How do I take a responsibility for my own feelings and let them have theirs?
Mm-hmm.
So just, I think all of that comes from it really, the solution for me started when I met people that got it
Yeah.
and that could show me that there was another way to do it
Yeah.
gently,
Yep.
gently, Maureen. One
Yep.
day at a time, one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This goes for I want to make sure I add, this goes for professionals too, finding my people,
Oh, yeah.
right? Making sure you have a therapist that
Yeah.
isn't shaming you,
Yeah.
or isn't judging you, making sure you have a therapist that gets it, like completely gets it,
Yeah.
and is
That can
educated, right? Is educated and
shop effectively, be a consumer, a responsible consumer of
yep,
help.
yep, psychiatrists, treatment programs.
Mhm.
The program that you were sharing is it's a partial hospitalization program. Kids go in half day, and then the rest they're able to stay at home, which then they titrate down to an intensive outpatient program. They go a little bit less, and then
Well,
they
that
go
might be,
to
yeah, that might be. It wasn't part of the public system here.
really,
No.
yeah. We have that here in the States.
Good.
You would go, what it looks like is if your child is suicidal, threat to themselves or others, we put them on what's called a 5150, and they go into residential treatment.
Mm.
They're there they're there for a couple days, sometimes a week, depending on their level of severity.
Hmm.
And then it's recommended that they step down to a partial hospitalization program, and
Hmm.
they're there so many days out of the week, and do involve they do involve family, which is
Hmm.
very important.
Yes.
Group therapy. I say we. I used to work for one.
Good.
They do group therapy, family therapy. They educate family separate from the teens, and then they bring the family and the teens together in a group, educate them, provide them with support,
Yep.
reassurance, validation, skills, and then they titrate down. And then it's when you go to a therapist and you already have the skills, and your therapist reinforces those skills,
Perfect.
helps you make connections. There's not like a program that does all of those things, but that's just to educate those that are listening. Those are the steps you want. You want to make sure you're able to go through that process, because if you go straight to therapy and you don't have a good therapist,
Well,
that shame
you can chat about stuff forever and you'll never get anywhere.
never get anywhere.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love what you're saying about the program, the reintegration
Yep.
to the parenting role and the family dynamics.
Yep.
You can't take someone out of a system, change
No,
them and put them back in the same system the way that it was and expect them
will
to
work.
stay changed.
Will work.
No, we're going to make each other all very sick again. I use the word sick and well, and so, yeah, you have to change the system. You have to educate the family. You have to we had to relearn how to be with our kids without trying to manage them,
Yeah.
how to look after ourselves when we're scared instead of trying to look after them when we're scared. Like
Bingo.
we had to
Yes.
learn all that. And so I love that you describe that as part of your system in the States. The program here was called the Alberta Adolescent Recovery Center. I'm in Alberta, Canada, and it's pretty unique here. I think there's lots of probably outpatient programs, but nothing that was this intensive or this long. This was about almost a year.
Oh, wow. That's great. That is
Um,
great.
we needed it. Our family
Yeah.
was off the rails. And so, yeah, we really needed that kind of support and help. So it was, but I love what you're saying. You have to support the
Yeah.
family. The
All
family
the way.
needs, you need help by then. Like, oh my
Yep.
God. This,
Well, and you're in this state of such desperation too. Like, listen, I'm not a bad parent. I just want to help my kids. Stop judging me. Like, just let's put the damn pen down for a minute and
yeah,
just hear me, hear what I'm saying so I can help my daughter.
yeah.
Or tell me what to do so I can help, and really listen to what I'm saying. Please listen to my daughter. Please help my daughter. You do
Mhm.
go into this state of like just yearning for that help, and being so desperate. And when you do have the right support, and your therapist is able to see you, to see the
Mhm.
family, not judging you, not trying to pinpoint, that you guys are the issue, just really understanding. Listen, all I got to do right now is arm you with tools, help you sit in the discomfort, help you recognize, help you identify
Mhm.
triggers.
Yeah.
We're going to do this together.
Yeah.
You're going to love me and hate me sometimes at the same time, sometimes at different times. And
Yeah.
I'm in it with you. I'm in it
Yeah.
with you.
Oh
Right.
man, that's so good. And walk with you through this.
Yeah.
And I do talk about in the book, because I mean, everywhere, you raise a really good point. Where you live, the system is a little bit different than where I live. And for that reason, I've tried to articulate in the book things to look for,
Yeah.
no matter where you are, things to look for
Yes.
and questions to and ask yourself, and to ask your proposed professional.
Mm-hmm.
Shop,
Absolutely.
be a responsible
Yes.
consumer. Not all therapists or therapies are created equal.
No.
And listen, like, do your fact checking and listen to your gut. Like, how does this feel for you?
Do I trust
um,
them?
yeah, I remember sitting in my daughter's psychiatrist's office. She's a lovely lady, um, nice lady. Like, she really did help us out. But I do remember the day that she was diagnosing Allie with borderline personality disorder, and she opened up the DSM and she sort of slid it across the table and asked Allie to read these 9 criteria, and
Hmm.
did you identify with anything? And I couldn't see. I was trying to see, like, what is she looking at over there? And I
Yeah.
couldn't see it. And Allie said, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's me for sure." And she's like, "Okay, you've got borderline personality." And I was overwhelmed. I started to cry, and I just sat there and cried. I sat there and cried, and I felt invisible,
Yeah.
sobbing in the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah. Yeah. What does this mean? What does
What
this mean?
new what is this? Now we've got a new diagnosis and a new problem. Like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Ugh.
And it's a heavy diagnosis too,
It can be. I've learned a lot
right?
about it, and it can be. Very, you know what? But a beautiful diagnosis too. I mean,
Well, yeah,
our artists,
absolutely.
our artists and our poets are borderline.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
feeling people. These are
Yes.
expressive people. These
Yes.
are,
But all of that has to be explained, because when you look, and what I mean by heavy, it's you're looking the
oh, I get it.
criteria,
I
the
get,
criteria you're looking at, you're like, wait, as a parent, you're like, okay, wait a minute, what? Yeah,
yeah,
it fits, but like, can somebody please sit with me and so I can process what all of this is, and I can make adjustments and understanding, maybe even ask some questions.
sure.
When you don't have that, yeah, it can be overwhelming.
And when you run into an untreated person who's
Yes.
been diagnosed with borderline, it's a nightmare. And so
100%.
that's where, yeah, that's a heavy diagnosis.
Yeah.
There are some biases and some prejudices and some
Yeah.
scary stuff goes on with that diagnosis. Not with my own kids. My own kids have done a lot of work, and they're so lovely.
Yeah, they are. Your daughter's amazing.
She is.
I think also knowing that, going back to with the therapist, you can't treat borderline personality disorder with just everyday therapy.
No.
This requires dialectical behavioral therapy. It
Yes, yes.
requires cognitive behavioral therapy, and
Mhm.
really having therapists that is familiar with that diagnosis.
Hmm.
Otherwise, back at shooting at nothing, you know?
Yeah,
Maureen,
there's a
go ahead.
lot. No, there's a lot going on with borderline. But anyways, I've got a soft spot
Yeah,
for BPD for sure.
absolutely. So when I did work at the partial hospitalization program, I ran groups, and so that was my group.
Ah,
Um,
nice.
I have a high level of respect for those that have been diagnosed with borderline
Yeah,
personality disorder. Um, so yeah, um, I agree. I agree.
yeah,
Very, very creative, very much misunderstood.
yeah.
Um, so yeah. Maureen, thank you so much for being on. This has been amazing, amazing.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you
where
for.
can we find you?
Well, I'm my website is maureenTowns.com. And you can find pretty much everything there. My links to social media are there. My links to buying the book are there. And the book really it is a combination of a memoir. Like it's a bit about, I use my stories as the backdrop, but really it's meant to be helpful. There are some
Yeah,
reflective questions and tips and points in there for people who are experiencing some adversity. And I'll do a free consult with anyone. Like anyone can reach out. You can book that through the webpage as well. Um,
okay.
I'm happy to
Yeah,
chat with anybody, man. And if I'm not able to help you, I can usually put you on the road to finding some effective treatment. And thank you too for what you're doing. I'm so grateful, honestly, that you're out there advocating for mothers,
yeah,
and women to, we're trying to have it all,
yeah, yeah, we are.
and the expectations are high, and the
Yeah,
pressures are high, and it's complicated, man. Like it's a tough job. Like, and yeah, but very doable and lovely. And I really appreciate what you do too, in terms of how are you doing with the parents. Thank you for that. Because my heart is with those who are trying to support people with mental health and addictions. And there's a gap there for a lot of us, in
yeah,
terms of meeting our needs and supporting the people who support. So thank you for that work.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. This has been amazing. I feel like I can stay on here for like ever
Me
because of
too.
this.
Yeah.
Just
Me too.
all the information. You guys, I can't stress it enough. Get her book. She does. She covers over the 6 steps to recognizing codependency and parenting, which is very, very important. We all need to know that.
Mhm.
She does give a whole lot of useful, resourceful information. And your story is so
Mhm. Thank
relatable,
you.
and can open the eyes of parents, especially if right now you're finding that your teens are struggling. Get this book. Get this book because you will find not only understanding, but you also gain so much clarity and insight as to what's going on and how to help your team, how to help your family. So, Maureen, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Veronica.
Absolutely.
Take care.